Common Council meeting to order. Could we have?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A reading from the 61st Psalm. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call faint. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Let's pray. Good and gracious God, all leaders are brought to their positions by you. Be present with us now. Bless this meeting. Respect and the desire to serve not our personal interests, but the interests of our community. We pray in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as written.
Second. Motion by Steve, second by Doug. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Now we come to public comment. This is the opportunity for comments and concerns on any current city issue, knowing no action may be taken tonight. I ask that you keep it civil and respectful and within 5 minutes. However, discussion of personnel or individual members of the Common Council shall not be permitted. I expect you to be respectful. Before you begin, please state your name and address for the record. We have John Ernst.
John Ernst, 550 Ardmore. My support for extending the current hours. City Ordinance 13.35020, Section E, Point 16 is extremely restrictive. The hours of operation are 7 to 9 p.m. and are the most restrictive of all the cities I've done my research for. I expanded my research from the last time I spoke and realized that we start later and close earlier than all other cities. While I understand there's city ordinance for noise, it seems like 9 p.m. for an ATV, UTV is very restrictive. I'll note again that the average typical car engine can produce between 70 and 90 decibels, and while the UTV produces between 70 and 110. On the same note, a motorcycle can produce up to 105. While all these are in the same range, none of them can really be disproven from the other typical gas vehicle. There's a lot of growing businesses also in the area, and trying to attract this growing community seems to be only a benefit to them. People love going out to dinner, listening to the music on the village square, going to the high school and college sporting events throughout the year, and having to make it home by 9 p.m. isn't very inclusive and could prevent them from attending these events. I've spoken to people in the community as well as our local riding communities, and they would like to take their ATV, UTVs to work in the morning. The largest company in the city, Alliance, has their main line starting at 5 a.m. Eliminating the mode of transportation for it has also allowed ATV and UTVs over the last year, and we have had no major incidences. All ATVs and UTVs must follow all the same laws and restrictions that are set forth by the Wisconsin DOT, and all vehicles years, no major incidences have happened. I think now we need to extend those ordinances to the vast number to agree with the vast number of cities in our area that are only benefiting from this extremely large growing community. I understand laws, but ones that make logistical sense and are reasonable need to take place. Thank you.
Thank you. A proclamation. Whereas International Overdose Awareness Day is recognized globally on August 31st to raise awareness about the risks of overdosing, honor the individuals whose Overdose Awareness Day aims to publicly challenge the stigma associated with substance use disorders and overdosing. And whereas many, though not all, drug overdoses in the United States and in Wisconsin are related to the use, and whereas every person deserves our best efforts to prevent injury and death from overdose, and it is imperative to support overdose prevention policies and projects, and to help make sure everyone understands overdose is a social issue which impacts the victim, families, friends, and communities. And whereas the City of Ripon recognizes the importance of spreading awareness about how to identify an opioid overdose and what to do in the event of an overdose. Now therefore, I, Theodore Grant, Mayor of the City of Ripon, do hereby proclaim August 31st, 2024 as International Awareness Day throughout the City of Ripon and commend its thoughtful recognition to all citizens of our city. Proclaimed this 26th day of August, 2024.
Do you want to make the motion?
You can. I'll second.
Motion by Ellen, seconded by John. Any discussion?
I just want to add, I'm proud to lend my support to my fellow colleagues on this proclamation that is so important. Our words matter. It's what we say, and as city is just such a good thing in my humble opinion, and great to see this being brought forward.
Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving this proclamation? All right, moving into our first agenda item, a resolution authorizing limited bow hunting within the city limits. This is done pretty much every year. This would be for Team Ripon to continue their management program. I believe this is all the same areas as before.
Correct, yep. There's a report provided by the lead, Craig Bauman of Team Ripon, kind of hunting within the city with bows. So 17 years we've been doing this, at 208 deer.
I read the report, and I'm wondering how we can my district have had a great deal of deer damage to their gardens, whether it's vegetable gardens or flower gardens. And so what would be the mechanism for obtaining more?
They can reach out to me and I can forward that information. Anybody interested can reach out to me and I will forward that information to Craig.
Okay.
They will then determine if it does meet, the overall safety standards and things like that to hunt on that land. But it is
Okay.
hard to find appropriate locations just due to neighborhood density, so on and so forth. And with the no baiting and other things, it's harder to attract the deer into the areas we are allowing them to hunt. So
Well, a lot of these folks live along Union Street as
Probably Elm Street.
nearly Ransom, but I know you can't hunt up there, but I'm wondering about Lower State, somewhere there. Just asking.
Loud, but I think that if it is an issue, again, I hate to put taxpayer money towards this, but could there be help with providing fences around their gardens?
I actually think it's not, because they can jump over fences. I think it's a matter, and maybe, well, do we even have a UW extension anymore? There are certain plantings that you can put in that deer don't like. And I didn't know if we could do an educational program on that.
The other thing regarding this, for the bow hunting, I voted for it every year. That I've been on the council, I remember a statement, and I understand we can't make the hunters because we have to find, good hunters that want to do this. But there was a general sort of agreement that if it was possible, there would be an encouragement to donate to the local food pantry I remember conversation, and I don't know if they said that verbally that they do that. Again, they're not going to require it of the people of bow hunting, but I don't see this, and I know that that was stated here.
If all deer were distributed to a variety of people to use meat, no waste. So there's no waste going into it. They distribute it to the hunters as well as I believe they do donate it to the food pantry or other area, nonprofits if there's indeed anything left over.
Yes, and my point was, I remember that was part of it, I think, in the past, maybe their report. They specifically talked about donating. So I'm just stating out loud, if they're listening, I support this, and I hope in the future that that's an official part of their report.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve this?
I move we authorize limited bow hunting within the city limits for 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Alan, second by Mark. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the resolution authorizing limited bow hunting within city limits, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, section. Adam?
So in your packet, there was a draft resolution amending the city handbook. This would be a amendment to add in dental insurance into the health insurance benefit program through the Wisconsin Retirement eligible employees and the Wisconsin State Health Plan. The next two resolutions are sort of tied together. So if we want to, we had talked about this probably 2 months ago, and open enrollment is set to start in September. So we need to know what we are enrolling in. So if we are going to add dental into the health insurance policy, we need to first set this resolution and then the next resolution.
I move that we amend the City of Ripon Employee Handbook to include health and dental insurance, to change the health and dental insurance.
Second.
Motion by Ellen, seconded by John. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of amending the City of Ripon Employee Handbook section on health and dental insurance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. All right, next section tied with the last, existing employer option resolution for Wisconsin Public Employees Group Health Insurance Program.
I move that we accept the existing employer option resolution, Wisconsin Public Employers Group Health Insurance Program.
Selecting,
Effective January 1st, 2025.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I will second.
Motion by Alan, seconded by David. Any discussion on this motion? Resolution, Wisconsin Public Employees Group Health Insurance Program for Section P04. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. With Wisconsin Southern, what's it stand for? Wisconsin and Southern Railroad LLC. This is for a section of track going into the, is required to maintain it, and Wisconsin Southern operates over that track.
I had a question about, it says MSI Express. Do we have a really rough number on how often they're using it?
Aaron Kane is in the audience. I would say not so. Grant, as I note in the staff report, I believe last year it might have been anywhere from 0 to 2, maybe 3. They're not using it a lot. But they,
Okay, thank you.
You could remind me what the duration of this agreement is?
it's,
Just 1 year
no, it's kind of in perpetuity.
Okay.
It's,
until someone cancels?
yes.
Okay.
So this is obviously a long agreement in the staff report. We've been working on this actually for 3 years plus. It's kind of gone, Watco and Wisconsin Southern haven't really made it a priority until more recently. Ultimately, we are required to have this type of agreement. There is no pay for it. We are to maintain the track. What happened through this process was, I think, a lot of healthy conversation with the railroad as well as the business communities that are, or business community that is using the rail. What it really came down to in kind of a line in the sand was over insurance requirements. There was a lot of things going back and forth and a lot of requests made by the rail of the city to hold certain insurances. When we would ask them to do similar things, it was like, no, we don't do that. So through talking about closing the line, selling the line, they did agree to ultimately adding some additional insured language for the city and beef up some of what's required of them from a insurance and liability concern. So this has been reviewed by legal, been reviewed by our insurance company, the agreement. They have given their okay. Ultimately, if the council determines that it's in the best interest to maintain this rail and keep it open, and if not, we would talk about closure and or sale, but that is up to you all. And that is a bigger conversation than just this agreement.
In the near future?
No, there's like one area of concern, but generally speaking, the rail is in fair condition. It's something we have certainly not planned for, and one of the reasons why we looked at the alternative as a sale, just because the ongoing maintenance costs that will come due in time.
And because we own the rail, even if it's not being in operation through that operational, condition, right, as I saw
The
in
T
here,
grant,
so.
yep, the state would require us to keep it in operational mode or condition, operating condition, even if it were closed. But
So we could close it to traffic and that would minimize the wear and tear on it, but at the end of the day, we still. 0 to 3 is not for a rail that's built to, carry stuff all the time, so.
Where is Flash Trucking on this map? It
Flash
isn't?
is developing their own spur.
They are developing their own spur. Is there an urgency to it?
well, clearly it's been discussed for the last 3 years and it's finally here, so it's not been that urgent. I would say approving, you can postpone a decision, and I don't know what reason why, if you have questions or if you have concerns about it, but, all the background work and recommendation is to approve it if.
And there is also a 30-day out on the terminate. You can terminate the agreement with 30-day notice.
That's helpful, thank you.
Jolene, then Steve.
So that being said, once there is larger maintenance, we're going to know, and we could decide at that time, you could, standing, and regarding the maintenance of the snow and ice removal, vegetation control, grade crossing maintenance, these are things we're already doing, correct?
Generally speaking, yes. There's not much maintenance that's going into it today, but yeah, if any of those things come up, we address them as it's our property.
So just so I'm clear, if we approve this today, we're not putting an undue burden on our formalizing something, so there's a formal agreement.
We already own it and take care, yeah.
Yeah, we have the same duties. We just put it in agreement form.
Can we have an agreement with them that they maintain? Even though it's on our property? And the point I'm saying that is, they have the equipment to do that, and they're using it.
How it's going to play out if that comes to pass is they require certain contractors to do the work, which is most likely them anyhow.
Right.
Or Watco or one of those contractors. So they will tell us who we have to hire to maintain it, and we just write the check.
Okay, but they're using the rail. In other words, they're parking the cars on it. We're not charging them rent. We're not charging them anything for using the city property, even though this is really important to the city to have spurs like that for certain businesses. What I'm saying is, they could give a little bit, I believe, in a certain situation, couldn't they?
In negotiations, they certainly have the upper hand.
I would say, just to be clear on this too, this is our property. It serves businesses within the community. Any cost you put on them likely will be put upon the users, the end user, right? They'll push that cost onto it. We have an obligation based on accepting a grant many, many years ago to maintain this as our property and to make sure it's an operating rail. Regardless of if Watco or anybody uses it, we will have that responsibility. The fact that Watco and Wisconsin Southern put in the insurance stipulations and agreed to the things that we asked, frankly, is a massive win and puts us in a better position than we currently are in, because we are operating under a situation that they are using our rail without certain insurance requirements, without certain parameters, et cetera, right? So, well, you know, we're talking about a lot of things. We wish they could do this. They have, frankly, like 9 months of back and forth. This is at a good spot today after that. All it does is pretty much further protect the city and their use of this rail. So that's why we're recommending, if we want to stay in the rail business, to approve this.
Cars on the rail right now, the spur, and then do they notify the city when they use the spur? They don't, do they have to?
I believe in periods of times there are cars sitting there.
Okay.
Right? And they store them there and like that.
Okay.
It's just, right now they're just using it without an agreement.
And then, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
My last question, where it crosses Douglas Street, does that require us to have more insurance? Or it doesn't matter that it crosses the road?
No.
Okay.
We just have to maintain that crossing. The DOT comes around and inspects it once in a while, so I think recently we had to like repaint some lines and move some signage.
Agreement allowing for WSOR/Watco to operate on the city-owned industrial spur.
I'll second.
Motion by Ellen, seconded by John. For discussion.
So was the motion that we not only allowed them to operate, it was to accept this agreement? Is that what
Yes.
you stated?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting the agreement with Wisconsin Southern Railroad, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is an ordinance to amend the chapter 20.46 floodplain of the municipal code. This is referred from the Plan Commission. It was reviewed there over the last couple of months. This was also very close in wording to the revision we made last year. The DNR has made a few tweaks and changed their maps. That's why it's coming back to us again to update that language.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance to amend Chapter 20.46 floodplains of the municipal code.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mark, second by Doug. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the ordinance to amend Chapter 20.46? Opposed? That is approved. That is a long section.
Sorry.
Did you read it again?
All right, next up is a professional services agreement for Selfridge Park improvements. We have Dan Rammer from MSA on the line if anyone has questions or if he would like to make any statements.
All right, so this is just the design and grant administration for the Selfridge Park, includes topographic survey, plan development, permitting, bidding, and as I mentioned, the grant.
Mark.
Yeah, I have a question. There's currently a skate park where the proposed parking lot is. Is there a plan for the relocation or new location of the skate park equipment?
What you have is a map of the park master plan that in its, during that project and that plan, that's kind of like a redesign of everything. This does not include touching that area, right? There was a discussion about moving the skate park to another community or another park in that plan. That is not a part of this, and that's not going to be executed in this project. So the general scope here, park master plan, ultimately that was kind of what was used to apply for the stewardship grant and will help inform and guide the plan and design. Obviously, budget and some of the permitting may dictate and change this concept on paper once it gets engineered and designed to be formally bid. But in principle, that's the concept and the area we will be addressing in this project.
Thank you.
Doug.
Are we likely to start this project this year?
This is for next year at this point. We've been working with Alliant Energy. They will be completing their cleanup project on the northern side of the property starting in, I would say, the next month or so. So then that's what's delayed this, because we received the grant maybe almost a year ago already. And thankfully, Alliant Energy came to us and talked to us about this, so we sort of hit the pause. And now that we know it's kind of moving again, I engaged MSA to move the project into, design project bidding again.
And just so you notice on attachment A, it does have bidding estimating as February or March of next year. Jolene, then Ellen.
No, that's what I was going to ask. I know he said next year for this process, but I mean, if we approve it tonight, we are on track, right? This is the updated. So again, on attachment A.
What we're looking for approval on tonight is the engineering bid.
Agreed. So, but the point here is that the timeline that's still the timeline. I guess I'm asking Dan, right? That was on attachment A. That is the updated timeline, correct?
Correct.
Well, that's exciting.
Correct.
I support this.
I was approached the other night and asked if there would be any dredging associated with the project. I didn't see anything in the engineering program on that.
The cleanup project for Alliant Energy is separate from this. That's being done
Is there some dredging involved with that?
No.
No? Okay.
It's all on the shore.
Okay.
And while that work is being done, the park will be closed. So probably here in a week or so, we're going to end up closing Selfridge Park for that cleanup.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know, and I didn't see any reference to it, so I'll let the person know.
Jolene?
I move to approve the professional services agreement for Selfridge Park improvements as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Jolene, second by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the professional services agreement from MSA for Selfridge Park Improvement Engineering, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 7, review of ordinance chapter 13.35, all-terrain and off-road vehicles. This is a review of the ordinance as it was written a little more than a year ago. It has been brought up for a couple of suggested revisions, and that is why it's on the agenda tonight. Would anyone like to start discussion? Steve?
The only question I have is, it doesn't bother me that they park on the street, but did you talk to the people that own the businesses on Main Street?
I know Craig from Ripon Main Street has sent out a survey, and he is here. Craig, do you have the results of that survey?
So unfortunately, the responses are going slow. Right now, it's not a non-biased survey. So I believe there were 9 no's, 2 yeses, and 1 neutral regarding parking on Watson. So I'd like to hopefully request that we give this a couple more weeks and try and get a greater response. It seems like of those replying to the question, they're more forgiving, or they're more in favor of the extension of hours than they are parking in the 200 block or the 100 block, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mark?
I seem to recall that when this ordinance was adopted, local groups had raised some money or had done something to help with the signage. So I guess I would ask, if we're proposing any changes or if we need to change any signage, it would be helpful for the local, community groups to help with that in some regard. If we're looking for input from the community and we want to change something, then I think it would be in the spirit of what was adopted. I don't remember what date it was exactly, but it would be in the spirit that if that's the community group that wants to make changes, that it would be helpful, I think, to the council that support would be there before we would propose any changes.
John?
Yeah, I'd like to just say that when this came up the first time to vote on it, I did vote against it. But now, after a year or so of it being okay to drive in town, up and down my street in front of my house, they're no louder than a motorcycle, and I'll just say they're a lot quieter than most Harleys. The hours of operation, I don't know, at 5 a.m., if that's when Speed Queen or Alliance opens, maybe we can look into that. And as far as the parking, the people I talked to on Watson Street really didn't have an opinion, and I really truly they're scared to say they don't want it because they're afraid their businesses might be harmed if people find out that John Split said, I don't want ATV parking in front of my store. So I believe Mr. Ernst had a great point about having to park a block away, walk up the street to Knuth, and there sat a motorcycle on Main Street. So in my opinion, I'll just let council know that I would be in favor of redoing the ordinance and allowing the parking on Watson Street. Hours of operation, we'd have to look into, I believe, at the 5 a.m. though. I'd have to do more thinking of that.
And just to that point, I know at a previous meeting, I don't know if the last one or the one before, there was a person that spoke and suggested the hours of operation of 6 to 10 as opposed to 5 to 11. So there have been several suggestions as to changes of time. Jolene?
Thanks. I greatly respect the work of our downtown manager, and I don't know if that's your official title, but of Craig, in favor of giving that more time. I understand there's a desire to, for those that are, interested in being able to park, but I don't, personally, I'm not convinced of the urgency. I would be willing to consider it, but I want to that. And with regard to hours, I guess, are we allowed at this moment to, I think that there might be some other people here. I think that if, for me, my opinion changes if I know that it's, I talk to the riding club, and so I'd like to know, I remember how contentious this was, and so my point is, I have not heard any complaints, and I'd like to call in a little bit our chief to say that. Concern is, if the hours are expanded more, it gives more opportunity for people to perhaps be upset, complain, and I would like to know, is the riding club willing to make a statement? Have they talked to their members for earlier and later, knowing that it does open the door, theoretically, for more people to complain, and you'd hate for it to go backwards from what we have. Are we allowed to see if anyone from the riding club would ask, or could we leave this for the future meeting and they have time to come back?
I think that's the more appropriate approach, because even though I'm sure some of these gentlemen are in the riding club, I don't know if they can officially speak from the club as a whole. And Chief, she had mentioned to ask if you were aware of any complaints.
Sure, thank you. A couple of things that I've heard tonight, that I'll just address. So, as far as complaints, since this was passed back in November of 2022, we had about 11 complaints. 2 of them parking issue downtown, disorderly conduct, traffic violation complaints. 3 of those, age of the driver complaint, and I'm generalizing these, 1 of those, and then 3 equipment type complaints, whether it was head complaints that I could find. Now, some of that has to be taken with a grain of salt because it's all about how that's entered into the system. So, for example, for me to search ATV or UTV complaints can be difficult unless that goes in under a UTV or ATV complaint. So, for example, if it goes in under a parking complaint into the CAD system, I have to search every single parking complaint right here dealt with an ATV, UTV. So that can, so those numbers can be a little deceiving, but that's what I was able to find. As far as the sign issue that was brought up, the only signage that I think would be affected by which the changes that you're talking about, UTV usage of city roads, but it doesn't have a time limit, or that does not exist on the sign. It just talks about the open roads throughout the city are open unless otherwise marked. So as far as any expense there, but you are correct that the other thing I will say is that, yeah, this was we did have lots of conversations when this ordinance was passed. And I'm not here to tell you what to do as far as the hours or that's your decision. You're the ones that have to answer for that. The other thing I will make comments about the ordinance is, in my experience in seeing ordinances throughout my time here, this is a strong ordinance. It's not confusing. This is not one of those ordinances. It lays out pretty well. It's easy to understand, easy to follow the rules. So, not that affects, the hours or the parking regulations here, but I'll just say that this is a strong ordinance when it comes. So, questions? I see a couple.
Art, then Ellen.
I didn't have a question just so much as I think if we were going to make any motions now or in the future for changes that we should separate them into a parking and an hours, just so that we can consider both of those issues separately, just to my fellow council people.
I don't really have a question for the chief, but you can, I do want to mention, as a former downtown business, the complaints I got as a business owner, and I don't know if you get complaints of this nature, is that there isn't enough parking, particularly for the demographic of older people who utilize some of the, not only the retail businesses, you have a service business. My concern is if you have a UTV or an ATV taking up a parking spot, we don't have designated handicap parking downtown anywhere, I don't think.
On the 100 block there is, but
On the one,
not on the
one
other
on
two.
the 100 block? Okay, so people who see me on Friday mornings at 9:30, I am dropping my mother off at Hair Today. Many times I am double parked, and Canoe is double parked too, so we are creating a traffic jam. But these are people who have limited mobility. And I guess I take exception to folks who have good mobility, who are younger, who can walk a half a block. We do have plenty of parking downtown. We have parking in back of the 200 block, we have parking in back of the 100 block, we have parking in back of the 300 block. And I don't block to get to where they're going. Many times I park off-street to allow parking for elderly people who have difficulty with mobility, or they have wheelchairs of that nature. So I'm a little testy about development. If there is an issue that we are seeing economic increases in revenue, I would like to see that data. Before I would even consider voting to extend hours, I would like to see the data that says we are this issue. So those are my two things.
Thank you. I'll just give you my quick 2 cents. I certainly helped craft this ordinance with a lot of help from Adam, mostly Adam, and Lud as well. And the 2 issues that are coming up for review, the parking on Watson and the limited hours, were 2 major concessions that the constituents I talked to wanted in there to allow this at all. There was a lot of people against this ordinance from the start, and with these concessions, we got the support for it. I'm not saying that the hours can't change a little, but I certainly would not be in favor of 4 or 5 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. And the downtown, as a downtown business owner, I see parking spots full most of the week. And to agree with Ellen, that parking around on a side street or the back lot is not an inconvenience. Jolene, then John.
I heard Mr. Ernst say something about being inclusive. Just in my mind, and I don't know if he meant this, but the question of handicap. I don't want to assume, although I can see why one could assume, but I don't know much about the ATV, UTV specifics. Theoretically, there could be someone who's handicapped that is utilizing, perhaps it's better for them. It seems like it would be more difficult for them. But I'm wondering, under the ordinance, from our police chief, if someone has handicap designation for parking, could they theoretically park in that space? Would you be for that? And now, unfortunately, it could cause some confusion if others see an ATV, UTV parked downtown, but hopefully they would also see it's the handicapped.
Can you get handicap designations for ATV, UTV? Like a sticker, a thing? I don't even know if you can do that, can you?
I'm not sure about that, but I know we do have people that can't walk very far in their
Yeah, so it'd be, whatever the registration. So there's a couple things with that.
Let me Google.
First of all, we could say, well, what if, all this, we have one person that, it's kind of a weird question because, we could just hypothesize this to death.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
But the other thing is, what's reasonable? You know, if somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'm taking my mother downtown, she can't walk, she's handicapped, or we're going down on our ATV, we want to park in the handicap spot, are we gonna, the letter of the ordinance is probably no, but are we going to, I mean, what's the flavor here? I mean, what's reasonable? That hammers it down with that. So we're always willing to work with people and be reasonable about things. Letter of the law, probably not, but, would we make an exception on one occasion for that? I mean, in the big scheme of things, not a big deal for one handicapped person to utilize a handicap spot. Where the issue would probably become is that the next handicap and sees an ATV parked there is going to call us and say, there's an ATV parked there, that's the only spot that's here for handicapped people, I want it moved. And there's no designation on the ATV for that. So that's where you're going to have conflict and problems. We haven't run into that. So to ask a question like that, to hypothesize about that is kind of a difficult thing for me to answer, frankly.
John and Steve.
Question for the chief. Those violations, were any of noise, like too loud a muffler or?
I know there was disorderly conduct or traffic violations on an equipment. I don't know specifically what those were.
Okay.
I know one of the equipment had to do with helmets and lights, but I don't know if there was any noise
They would
specific.
fall under the same ordinance of, like, if it was a loud truck muffler or car muffler. So if they had, if somebody complained of, okay.
Yep.
And with you, I guess, with all due respect to Ellen and the mayor, how do we know that these UTV riders aren't going to the hair salon or going to patina?
They're taking spots that, John is able-bodied. Sorry, John. I can do this because I've known you forever. He's able-bodied. He can park off-street, but if somebody is, well, motorcycles are actually registered vehicles, so we don't want to get. Yeah, but you're with the DNR, you're not registered through the DMV. So I don't want to get into that discussion right now. But my concern is that elderly are typically going to be in vehicles, not ATVs or UTVs.
And you know that for a fact?
I think we could probably get data on it.
Okay.
I'm
I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
taking
okay.
anything up. I'm just
That's okay.
voicing
It's a good question.
an opinion on that how can we decide that this person can't park there? I know we did a year and a half ago, but with the chief's, violations, only like 11, I bet if he totaled up how many moving vehicle, like car violations, it would be
Oh, well,
a ton more.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not comparing apples to apples.
Well,
Yeah, that's a
is
little
it or
tough.
isn't it? I don't know, but
Well,
I'm
there's
just saying.
20,000 vehicles that drive through this city on a
Yeah.
daily basis, and maybe 100, if that, maybe 25 UTVs. So I think to draw that comparison is a little tough. I'll just add a couple of things here on the comments that I'm hearing. One is I would agree that you need to separate these two issues if it's coming back or you make a decision tonight, one about the parking and one about the hours. As far as the parking downtown, we continually get complaints about parking downtown. Doesn't specifically have to do with ATVs or UTVs or vehicles, whatever, or the competition between the two. It's just generalized parking issues. Because the general consensus is for the people that, a lot of times what we see is, I want to go in this business, a lot where there's 80 parking spots that are less than half a block away, they want to park in front of that business because I want to walk in that door. And that leads to the complaints about, well, there's no parking downtown. There's parking downtown. They want to walk that extra
block.
half a block or a block or whatever.
Yep.
You know, to the point that Ellen was making. So that's the only thing I'll say about that, about the parking issues that we see downtown and the general consensus a lot of times about what we see when we really look.
It's that, those are the complaints we get, is that they want to park in front of the store and they want to be able to go into that store.
Right. Yeah, that's the complaints I get a lot of times.
Steve?
My only comment was, I don't see a problem extending the hours for like a Friday night if they want to go to the concert downtown in that area with their UTVs, because right now they have to leave at, 9 o'clock?
My guess is he's about to tell you that having different hours on different days is going to be.
Yeah, I would caution against that, please.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
I would ask that you keep it consistent, whatever your decision is, because that just leads to questions from citizens. And because what's going to happen is they're going to say, well, I heard that you could drive till 11. Well, no, that's only on Friday nights. Well, I heard you could, so try to, my suggestion to you is if you're going to change the hours is keep that consistent across the board like it's laid out now in the ordinance. If you're going to change it, just change the hours. Don't specify certain days during the Friday concerts, during the summer, that sort of thing. Keep it consistent.
That we have a year to review that?
Any ordinance can be reviewed at any time.
All right. Well,
If people on the council know me, they know I hate sunset clauses or review clauses because they can always be reviewed at any time. Mark, then Jolene.
Motion that we postpone this, any action on this item until at least next meeting to gather more information from the businesses downtown.
It's not actionable. This is a review. It's not an action item.
Oh, I rescind my motion.
Jolene.
Yeah, following up with that, then my question is, moving forward, because I would like to hear more of a club, if possible, to be able to give some type of,
Difference is 20,000.
Statement on behalf of their club, so that there is some sense of larger agreement among those that are riding ATVs. So that bring it back up. I mean, obviously, they would communicate it to us, or?
My suggestion would be, once Main Street has completed their surveying, information gathering, and the riding club, if you would like to put together the official statement from the for times, if that's your approach, to put that in writing, send it to Adam's office. Once we get that information, we can put this back on an agenda and discuss it again. That would be my recommendation.
Just a note he wanted to hand out to the council or have read, but he just wanted to show his support for a change, just so because he was the one who requested this be placed on the agenda. The second thing, we can do that with feedback from the club, and the council can act on those at a future meeting. So it's as simple as just directing me to draft an ordinance or 2 ordinances, which can be done literally in 5 seconds based on the ordinance that we're changing. It's not long.
So at this time, I'll ask if there's any more discussion on this, or shall we move along and bring this back at another time? If there is no more discussion?
Got one question.
John?
And I'll have to go to these guys. How much is the yearly fee for your license?
I believe it's
35 a year, 35, for 2 years.
And that goes through the DNR?
Yes.
Okay. And it's for 2 years? 2 years, okay.
ATVs are the same.
And just playing devil's advocate on that point, and Ellen's similar point, that $35 goes to the DNR. None of that money comes back to the city. When a vehicle is registered with the DMV, some of that money does come back for road maintenance to the city. So, just point.
Well, they do pay gas tax.
Yes.
and that comes back. Well, a little.
Very little. Anyhow, so we're going to move on from this, and we'll bring it up at a future meeting.
It'll, in September, if that's the general consensus of the council, we can bring it back next month.
Yeah, once we get all the information.
Yep.
All right. Thank you for the discussion. All right, moving on to 2025 budget update. That's you.
Oh, so I passed out just a quick timeline. So the budget is officially being drafted and has started. It's been being worked on for the last couple months already. But over the last few weeks, we've been kind of finalizing department budgets based on worksheets. We have now the wages and benefits set so we can formalize all of that. And then you see that tonight is preliminary budget discussion at Common Council meeting. So this is just very broad, nothing really specific at this point, but a few numbers. Really the budget for 2025 is working in tandem or in unison with our financial management plan and our audit. So in previous years, we've had our audit delayed, and we couldn't really see a total picture. We have a better decisions and some of the recommendations in the 2025 budget, as well as working with Ellers on the financial management plan. There are things that are coming out of that we need to address in the budget. So ultimately, we are in a good place because all of these things are kind of coming together at once, right? The other notes I will make is if there are any requests from any committees or any other just general requests for the budget, for recommendations, please have that to me by September 9th. We are working then on formalizing all of the capital improvements the week of September 23rd. September 23rd, there is a council meeting on Monday. That's Monday. We will likely do a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday. So if you want to look at your calendars at some point, we can talk about that to make sure that the majority of you can attend. But that will be the first presentation of the draft budget. We will then at consecutive council meetings, discuss any changes, provide updates, and then by the 28th of October, have the summary budget, publish the budget, and then November 12th will be the public hearing. Overall, I provided some numbers in my staff report earlier this month regarding equalized value, net new construction, things like that. So net new construction was 1.38%. That is double or triple what we've had in the last 4 years. So that is a positive. So we'll have about $43,000 more allowable levy increase in due to net new construction. But it's all in equation when it comes to the tax levy and the ultimate mill rate that gets calculated out. So this is just kind of a brief overview in the budget, or to talk about with the budget ahead of some of these meetings. Certainly you can reach out and we can have that conversation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about where we are financially and where we're headed with the budget between now. So that's just an overview. So just mark your calendars and let me know if you have anything. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on.
Yes. I know everybody heard me at the last meeting talk about the National Voter Registration Day. That is set for September 17th. Last year we did it in Indiana, where I came from. Sorry, guys. We are going to be at the college again at the Pickard Commons from 11 until 1, so we'll be covering the lunches. We're going to be downstairs. If it's a nice day, we'll be outside, which will be nice, hopefully. And then we're going to be there again at dinner time from 4 until 6 p.m. So we will cover that twice. Of course, they're always welcome to come to the clerk's office. We are there from 7:30 a.m. till 4 p.m. Senior Center registering seniors, but anybody can come. All of this is open. You don't have to be a college student in order to come register or a senior citizen to come register. It's for anybody to be able to register.
Do you have anyone at Ripon High that is able to, for the seniors that might be eligible?
No, we
High school seniors.
talked to them a little bit about it. The amount of people or students that are actually at that 18 when they become a senior is very, very low. So we kind of, this is what we're doing at this point, is broadening it to these locations. Down the road, it may be this year we're doing one location twice and adding. I'm hoping as time goes on, each year we can add more and get more people involved. But it's definitely something I can keep in mind down the road.
Yep, because I believe you can pre-register if you turn 18 by November 8th, correct?
Right.
So,
There's a certain week, a couple of weeks in front of it.
Can you explain the registration to me? What's required when you register to vote?
Sure I can.
Thank you.
When you register to vote, you need to have a photo ID, which most everybody has is your driver's at the BMV as well, for your little motor vehicles for clarity. And then you would need to have proof of residency. So if your driver's license has your current, or your identification has your current address, you're covered, you're good to go.
And you can
Something that is government issued, such as a utility bill or a bank account, credit card, any of those things, something that is government issued that would be a legal binding document, basically. Utilities covers
their driver's license because everything is now tied through the DMV.
So you can go online to myvotewisconsin.gov and definitely go online. It shoots as soon as you hit done. When registered and set up immediately.
Great work, Naomi.
Are you registered?
Yes, I am.
Good. Okay. Adam?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. We are 70 days from the November election, which is Tuesday, November 5th. As she stated, September 17th is National Voter Registration Day, and refer to what she said for where you can go in registration to make sure that nothing has happened and you are still currently registered, and it will tell you where you are registered. So I encourage everyone, registered or not, to visit myvotewisconsin.gov. And 70 days to our election.
Motion to adjourn?
If you would like to.
Second.
Motion by Ellen, second by Doug. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.